Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 1985 Nissan 300ZX 2+2. Up front is a 3.0 liter V6, and down below is a 5-speed manual transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this 300ZX for two reasons. First of all, I always loved the Z31 generation of the 300ZX, and that's what this is. 1985, great year. But the second reason is the fact that this is a 2+2 and it's in pretty good condition, so I'm excited to share with you a car that you just don't see much of anymore and one of my personal favorites. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that VG30E under the hood. Well, that is the only engine that was available in this generation of Nissan Z. Now, you could find a turbocharged variant, but this unfortunately isn't that, although I've never disliked the NA motors. People call them boat anchors. People don't exclusively love these engines, but I've never had an issue with the VG30. Yeah, they are kind of big. Yeah, they're kind of a pain to work on, but I don't know. I never let that stop me from liking an engine. It revs fine. It drives fine. The turbo was there if you wanted it, but honestly, for a backroad cruiser like this, especially a 2+2, it's not totally necessary. Now, like I said, paired to it is a 5-speed manual transmission. Feels great, super light clutch, nice and easy throw into gear. No hesitations, no weirdness about it. It's sport-y, but you know, the 300ZXs to me were never really like true hardcore sports cars. They've always had a little bit of leisure in their step, especially the 300ZX Z32. I've always felt like that was just a little bit more cruiser oriented than performance oriented, and that's how this transmission feels, and especially with the NA motor, it's definitely how the rest of this car feels. Last but not least, of course, it is rear wheel drive. How does it feel to drive the 300ZX 2+2? It's lovely. Like I said, on a back road like this, we're out in Indiana here today. It's lovely. I get to roll my own gears. I can pop the T-tops out. I get to enjoy nature a little bit. I get to enjoy some nice roads, and that's it. If you're looking for a blood-pumping, toe-curling, adrenaline junkie automobile, the Z31 was never that, even in its turbo format. Now, my buddy Garrett has a big turbo on his car, and that makes it quite rowdy and crazy, but from the factory, even in its highest spec, it was never this, like, wild kid. And so I get to enjoy this car as it is, which is a backroad cruiser and not much more. I think a big part of that is the softer suspension. Driving this, you really do notice it has more plush suspension than a same year Supra or same year RX-7 or any of those competitors. So that does sort of reinforce that idea of, hey, maybe this is a little bit slower mentality-wise vehicle than some of its competitors. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, this one unfortunately did not get the digital gauge cluster option, so we are stuck with analog gauges here today, which I actually quite like, and honestly for longevity, this is what you want because the digi-gauge is always broke or we're just borderline unreadable. So I think they're laid out nice. Fuel off to the left with the speedometer and tachometer and coolant temperature off to the right. Nothing on the steering wheel besides the horn. We do get a nice Z badge, which I really like. And on the outside of the gauge cluster, we get our pop-up headlights to the left as well as our hazard switch and cruise control on and off. And off to the right, we have our rear defrost fog lights and rear wiper. Love to see that. Very 80s to get that. Off to the left, we do have a climate control vent. Moving on to the door, we have the power window switches and the latch to get in and out, but that's it. Moving into the center, we get two more gauges. So we get our oil pressure and battery voltage. Z cars have always had gauges in the center like this. Even the brand new one does, so I like that legacy touch there. Down below, we do have our climate controls. We do have AC. This is a factory AC car. Again, more cruiser oriented. Fan speed and a digital clock. We also do have a cassette player down below that is auto-reversing, which was, you know, a big deal. Ashtray, cigarette lighter, and a very nice 300ZX badge. The shifter's in the center. I love the blue surrounding. I love the blue interior, but carries on to the shifter as well. Very run-of-the-mill shift knob. I would have thought this was from a same year Chevy Cavalier, but it is not. It's here in the 300ZX. Then we do get coin holders, and I say coin holders because I've never seen this before. Coins at some point got so hot they melted into the material. So there you go. Gotta love the 80s. We do also have our mirror controls down here, as well as some dead switches and a center console, meaning there are no factory cup holders here in the Z31 300ZX, so by default, it fails the big friggin' bottle test. Now, the seats are comfortable. They are a little bit narrow. However, they are adjustable, and these are somewhat sporty, but they are cushy as well, so they do work as more grand touring seats, as this is a little bit more of a grand touring automobile. However, this is the 2+2, and 2+2 just means it has back seats. And so let's talk about that, because there are some changes with the 2+2. All right, here we go. Can't say I'm super excited about this, but we do have a latch here. Push that forward, and there you go. That is a good look at the rear seats before we step in. Yarg! Oh. So we're in the back of the 300ZX. I can't even put my head up straight. I can't move the seat back at all. These are tremendously awful back seats. The way it is now, there's no point in optioning the back seat, because two things come with the back seat. The back seat, be weird if it didn't, and a longer roof line. So this actually has a slightly longer chassis and longer roof line up above me to accommodate the back seats. So a lot of people, it's a little bit heavier than a traditional 300ZX without the back seats. It's a little bit longer. It looks a little bit weirder from the side profile. And you get no benefit because these back seats are pretty much unusable. If you have small children, maybe, but I honestly wouldn't be taking small children in 80s cars as it is. They're just a little bit less safe. If I had kids, I would want them in the most up-to-date safety vehicles I can have them in. So put a book bag back here, things like that, but this is awful. These back seats are gosh darn terrible. Now, we do get to enjoy the T-tops, of which you can pull these out. These are removable, which is very, very nice, but yeah, don't try to put anyone in the back of your 300ZX. You'll regret it, and they'll hate you, which is a lose-lose. Let's talk about the trunk. So I already pulled the latch from the inside. I don't think any Z car of any generation I've ever driven has ever had an external trunk popper. So there you go. Key, obviously, but not like a button. Once we are back here, we do get the leather bags. These are for the T-tops. Very, very cool to see that. This is a car cover. Normally the car sits under that, and that's pretty much it. You can fold the back seats down, so I guess you do get more cargo space even when the seats are down, but you could see what I was talking about with the longer roof line right here. So tons of trunk space. 80s cars were pretty good about that, especially the hatchbacks. I'm talking Supra, RX-7, 3000 GT, things like that. Tons and tons of space. So that carries on here with the 300ZX as well. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I love the look of the Z31. I think it might be one of my favorite looking Z cars. I know this was a very stark departure from the outgoing 280Z. Similar color combo, at least on the interior. You can see it's a pretty big difference. They added pop-up headlights. They squared it off quite a bit. Yeah, that was quite the lineage jump, but I do like the Z31. There's also something special about it. One of my close friends has one and drifts it. I've spent a lot of time around one. I've helped load them onto trailers and whatnot. So I think whenever I see a Z31, it sort of conjures up those feelings and memories of maybe the better days and childish innocence of buying a car for $500 and slapping a turbo on it, but I digress. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving this Z31 2+2? Well, as long as you're realistic about these cars, they are very, very enjoyable. I have people come to me all the time. They're like, oh, I want an 80s sports car. I want something that's, fast and punchy and fun and revvy. And sometimes they'll say, what about a 300ZX? And I have to unfortunately say, I would think otherwise. This just isn't a very performance-oriented vehicle. It has soft suspension, it has soft seats, especially this particular one. Although it has the manual, you could have gotten it in an automatic. That would have been even more plushier and dailyable. But it's the longer roofline 2+2. It has AC, it has the cushy seats, it has the cushy suspension, power windows. This isn't as hardcore as maybe some of its competitors were. And that's not a bad thing. If you want a super fast car, don't look at this. But if you want a fun 80s experience, something you could drive on a back road on a Sunday morning when no one's out, hey, you need to go make a grocery run, it's 9 a.m. on a Sunday, it's sunny, yeah, go take the 300ZX out, shift through your own gears, pop those T-tops out, feel the wind in your hair. That's what this car is meant to do, and that's where this car is happiest. A somewhat leisurely lollygag through the back roads of Indiana. That's where it feels comfortable. Can you slap an LS or a turbo under the hood? Of course, and it will be sporty. And there are ways to make it more rigid, to make the suspension stick to the ground better, and bigger tires and wheels and power and things like that. You can absolutely do that. But in its stock form, unmodified, unchanged, this is a cruiser for the weekends, and there's nothing wrong with that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Jimmy for letting me borrow his 300ZX for today's video. He's been absolutely wonderful. I also reviewed not only his Nissan Figaro, but his Toyota Century Hearse. So quite the diverse little Japanese collection here in Indiana. Jimmy has been wonderful to work with, and I appreciate him very, very much. But I appreciate you guys watching the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.